today's lesson is going to be on mean, median, and mode. And I know that this is usually tied in with stem and leaf plots and box and whisker, you know, stuff like that too. But I thought that I'd make 3 separate videos. That way you could just get to whatever you need. If you need all 3, then watch all 3 videos. But I didn't want to, you know, have all 3 in one video and then people are going, well, hey dude, like I don't even need that part. Okay, so let's get into mean, median, mode. All right, let me just write down like what these things mean and then we'll get into the information over here. So mean is also known as the average. Okay, it's kind of like the average of like, if you took all these numbers, like what is the average of all these numbers? Okay. Then we have the median, This is how I try to remind students of like how to remember what all of these mean. Not to make a joke about or a pun. But anyways, median, is the middle, okay? And then the mode is the mode, the most, okay? The number that shows up the most, okay? So we have the mean, which is the average, doesn't rhyme, doesn't have anything, sorry. I guess you could use the A. Then we have the median, okay, which is the middle. So it's kind of like the middle of all of these numbers. If you were to put them in a row in a line, what would be the middle? That would be the median. And then we have the mode, okay? The one that shows up the most, all right? So here's all my numbers. The first thing you need to do is to put them all in order, okay? Starting from 0 all the way to the biggest number you got, okay? This is usually where people make mistakes, and the biggest reason is because they don't cross them out when they write the numbers, okay? Take the time, cross them out. I see students do this all the time. They just kind of eyeball this stuff and they make this really good list and then they forgot a number and it's gonna throw everything you do right out the window, okay? Let's go through this together. What's the smallest number here? I have a 3. Let's see here, and then I have a 5. Is that right? Yep, and then I got a 7. And then I have a 12. I don't know why I put these in order, but whatever. Then I have a 16, and then I have an 18, and I have an 18, and then I have a 24, and a 25, and a 44, okay? So I got all these numbers now. They're in order. Oops, I didn't cross them out. So let me just make sure. 18, 18. 24, 25, and 44. Okay. And then you should also go back and count your numbers, okay? I got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, just to make sure you have everything here, all right? Now, the way you figure out the average is you just add them all up, okay? You're gonna add up all of these numbers, and then, so I guess you could even put little plus signs in here, okay? If that's gonna help you remember what to do for your average, okay? You're gonna add up all of these numbers that you were given, and then you're gonna divide it by however many numbers you started with, okay? And in this case, we had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 numbers. So we're gonna divide this big number we're gonna get by 10 to get the average, all right? So let me get my calculator because I'm not going to do this in my head. We have 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 12 plus 16 plus 18 plus 18 plus 24 plus 25 plus 44 is 172. Okay, so I got 172. Okay. Now, if your calculator, my calculator allows me to put all that in at one time, okay? If you're using just a basic 10 key, sometimes that doesn't really work. So you might need to do like 3 plus 5 equals, then do plus 7 equals, plus 12 equals, okay? I always just like to remind people of that because when it comes to using calculators, they're only as smart as you are or what you tell them, okay? And so you gotta understand the ins and outs of your own calculator when it comes to doing these types of problems so that you don't just get it wrong every single time. So know how your calculator works. If your calculator lets you put in all the numbers at once, then really the only question is, well, did you put them all in correctly? And if you are able to look on the screen and see all the numbers, then maybe just take a quick check and just make sure they're all input correctly, okay? Because the calculator is not going to say, hey, dude, you missed a number, right? Okay, so from here, if you've watched my other videos, you know what to do with a fraction like this. We read our fractions down, okay? I always put the arrow there to remind students that we read our fractions down. Now you might say, oh, it's divided by 10, so I can just move a decimal. Yes, you can, but for those of us that don't catch that or don't see that, let's go old school, okay? 172 divided by 10 equals 17.2, okay? If that last part about the decimal didn't make sense, that's okay, right? You're still able to do this just as well as everybody else, okay? So the mean or the average is 17.2. Okay, and really what that's saying is that, hey, if we took all these numbers and added them up and divided by how many we had, well, what would be the average amount, okay? Well, it would be about 17.2. Now, middle is a little bit different, okay? What number falls into the middle of all of these, okay? And the way I like to teach this is just a very basic concept using what's already here. I don't need to erase anything, I'll just leave it as is, okay? Now, if you have a ton of numbers, it can get a little bit tedious, but hopefully you're not gonna have more numbers than 10 or 15. If you're getting 20 numbers, then come on, I mean, that's just a lot of work, right? But put them all in order and follow the same steps that I'm doing right now, okay? Your goal is to work all the way into the middle and see what you get, okay? So we have this and this guy, right? Okay, so those would cancel out, I guess you could say. So we have this and this guy, those are gone. And we have this and this guy, we have this guy, and this guy, and this guy. And then you probably are saying, well, Josh, dude, like there's no middle, right? There's no extra number in there for me to say, oh, that's the middle number, okay? Now, if I had 11 values here, then I would have an extra number somewhere in the middle that I would say, oh, well, that's the median because it's the middle number. But if I don't have a median, then what you do is this. Let me take this, just erase that. Okay, you take these two numbers here, okay, you add them together and you divide it by 2, okay? And you're gonna find out something kind of interesting when you do that in your calculator, or in your head, I guess you could say. Let's see here, 16 plus 18 is 34, okay? So, just wanted to finish this thing up. Let's see here. So we have 34 divided by 2 is 17, okay? And one thing you'll notice about the number 17 is, oh my gosh, it's halfway between 16 and 18, okay? So I don't want you just to look at it that way and say, oh, well, it's just the number in between the two, okay? Because that's taking a shortcut and you're not understanding the concept here, okay? I want you to understand how the process can be done, because these could be super far apart. Like what if this was 16 and this was, or what if it was a decimal? What if this is like 16.9 and this is 18.345? I mean, are you really gonna be able to figure out that middle point in your head? No. If it was two numbers like this, then yeah, you probably can. You can say, oh, well, the middle is right there, number 17. But if there's decimals, if it's a more complicated number, then I want to make sure you understand the process here, okay? So you add them up, divide it by 2, and get your median, okay? And now we're down to mode, right? What number shows up the most? The nice part about writing them out like this, all in order and such, allows you to then look at the list and say, well, what number shows up the most amount of times, okay? And it is possible to have no mode, like if every number was just a single unit, you know, and there weren't any. I'm hoping that doesn't happen because it kind of defeats the purpose of learning what the mode is. Sometimes you might have like 3 5s and 12 12s, right? You might have a whole bunch of one number and even more of another number. For this purpose, or for this lesson, I just wrote in here which one shows up more than once, the number 18, right? So the number 18, I'll just put like a little arrow here, would be our mode, okay? Because 18 showed up the most, all right? Like I said, you could have had 3 18s in here and then like 15 25s, okay? And so that is possible. It's just a matter of putting them in order so you can tell which one is the mode. One other thing that sometimes shows up is, well, is there anything weird about this average? Is there anything that could be changed? And I guess it comes down to, sometimes there's these extra numbers called outliers that are just really, really big numbers that kind of throw your average out of whack, okay? In this situation, the number 44 is way far. I mean, if we have numbers 3 through 25, okay, you know, it's a pretty good spread of numbers. And then we jump up to 44. Sometimes there'll be lessons where they'll ask you to take out that outlier number and then see what the average is of maybe just these guys, okay? Because these are a little bit more tightly compacted, I guess you could say. And then sometimes they'll even put in numbers instead of 44, like 276, okay? So they're gonna put in some big number that's gonna throw this whole thing out of whack. And what I mean by that is, you know, when you go to do your average, you're going to add up all these numbers and the average is going to be like 136. And that's like so far off of like everything else that you have. And it sounds weird, but the reality is that because you have such a big number on the end here, it's going to skew your answer. Okay, so that does sometimes come up in some of these lessons. You know, what are the outlying numbers? What is something that's like way out of the blue, you know, some score or some value that's super big, and they might ask you like, what would be the average without that outlying number, okay? Because it really can skew your average here when you have a bunch of other numbers that are reasonably close together, okay? So thanks for watching. If you still have questions on stem and leaf or box and whisker, just look for my other videos. Otherwise, I'll be seeing you around. Thanks.